I always had a particular way about me. I was always, nerdy and idiosyncratic and spoke a certain way. This is a confession right now, but I always had this sense of feeling like I wasn't black enough.
Hey everyone, welcome to BET Talks. My name is Unique, and today's guest took us from zombies and The Walking Dead all the way to the stars with Star Trek Discovery. She's the first black woman to lead a series within Star Trek, and she's the first black woman to take the helm of captain with the SS Discovery. Sonequa Martin-Green.
Thank you.
No
I'm
problem.
really good. How you doing?
Thank
you for having me. This is exciting.
I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you.
First off, you have to show me how to do this because we were practicing.
Oh yeah, he's right. You got it.
How long did it take you to do this?
I'm gonna be honest with you. It didn't take me any time at all. I found out where it came from because that was important to me. I was like, I'm not gonna be just throwing up anything. And then I found out that it started with the high priests, and because Leonard Nimoy, he wanted to have something when he was creating the Vulcan species in the original series. And he saw in Jerusalem, he saw that, or maybe he already knew, but the priests would do it, and it was like an act of worship. And so he said, that's what I'm going to take that, and it's going to mean live long and prosper for my people. That's where it started.
That's
Isn't
amazing,
that cool?
because the first time I saw this when I was a kid, it took me years to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
And this side was like I'm throwing a gang side.
Oh, I know. You're like, ah.
So I'm surprised I could do it on this side. But let's talk about the journey with this series, because your character goes from this woman that's like trying to find out who she is.
That's right.
And then she finds out who she is, and she stands within that. And you can vividly see that journey from season 1 to 5.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for seeing it and specifically for saying that it's vivid. That's encouraging. Because that's definitely the hope, is that it's clear. Because it certainly was clear to me, bringing it to life. What a profound opportunity to not just be making television history as the first black female lead and captain in a Trek franchise, but also to be able to tell this story of growth, and to be able to tell this story of a black woman living in a world where she can fail and fall and is given the opportunity to change, who's given the opportunity to learn from mistakes and not just be shut down because of them. Because the thing is a lot of times it's the losses. It's the losses, it is, right? It's the failures, it's the losses that really teach you about who you are and about life and about where you need to go. It's just that a lot of the time we're not given those opportunities to learn from our mistakes. So it was a profound privilege to be able to bring that to life.
But not only that, you just see her transition in showing emotion. Because when you first meet her, she's not sure how to show emotions, how to convey it.
Yeah.
It's a battle. And as we get to season 3, you see her full of more love than before, and she learns how to show that love. Which I thought was beautiful.
Thank you.
No
Thank you so much. Yes, that was the battle, the inner conflict in the beginning between volcanism and humanity. Because I thought it was really cool that they put Captain Burnham, they put Michael Burnham in this time in Trek history and put her in the family of Spock, Sarek, and Amanda. But because of that, because this woman was raised as a Vulcan, there was this absolute necessity to deny every emotional impulse. And of course, as a woman, that's particularly challenging, as we know. And so that constant denial, it led to a lot of trauma and insecurity and doubt, uncertainty. And so that leads to coldness and being closed off and not being able to. But we see the sort of dam break with that, and it's season 2 is a bit of a waterfall of tears, because here you have you have this woman who's finally ready to at least start allowing emotions in and start feeling it, and it just rushes out like blah, like a pot that boils. It's just like boiling over. You just had the lid on it for so long, you let it go and it's like, right? But then you start to see that balance out. So thank you for saying that, because then you can see that all of those steps were necessary to take to get to that type of empathy and grace and warmth and connection as a captain in seasons 4 and 5.
Because like you also speak on it, like one of the characters say, "Have you ever expressed or said that I love you?" And then like you see later on, you're openly able to say, "I love you."
Yeah.
Which is like the growth.
That's it right there. That's it right there. Thank you.
No problem. And I know you spoke numerous times about how you just had this weight when the series first started, and you felt like you had to carry this weight to be perfect in this position because you were the first to be able to like have this for this franchise.
Yeah.
So can you talk about like how you were able to maneuver from feeling like you had to carry that weight?
Oh man, that took a long time. Honestly, I couldn't have done it without God. Obviously, I mean, I wouldn't be here. He gave this opportunity to me, and it took a lot of prayer and reflection to finally let that go. And it was in a way that I wouldn't have imagined, because I thought at the time that the way I was going to combat the pressure I had put on myself was if I did more. That was the way. It was like, well, this pressure will go away as soon as I've done enough. But no, when you're coming from that place, it's never gonna be enough. And you're going to always feel like you're not worthy of it. You're going to always feel like you don't deserve it. And this is a confession right now, but I always had this sense of feeling like I wasn't black enough. My dad was militant black man, and really hit us with black history at a young age. I mean, I was reading How to Make a Slave at like 8 or 9. You know what I'm saying? And I always had a particular way about me. I was always nerdy and idiosyncratic, and spoke a certain way because Daddy was like, "I'm sorry, that's a run-on. That's a fragment. Speak correctly." And so I was like, yes, sir. What I'm trying to say is, he taught me how to really communicate myself, right? So all of these things, though, it always made me feel sort of less than or whatever, like, maybe I got to do more. And I even as a child, I wanted to be darker skinned because I was like, I'm not enough. Like, I'm not black enough, And I brought all of that with me into Discovery. And it was interesting because I had all of that still in here as I'm making television history. As the first, you know what I'm saying?
Which is crazy because you're from Alabama, girl. You was as black as it gets. Seriously.
You need to change my life. Oh man, thank you. Oh man. Yeah, man. I had to just be healed out of that. I just had to be healed. He just healed me of it, and it took time because healing takes time.
It does.
But I learned through the healing process of that what I was actually doing was self-obsessing.
Did you ever get a chance to talk to Michelle about that? Seeing how she was in your position?
I didn't get to talk to her about this, but in watching her documentary, man, it's such a beautiful documentary. It just came out, I think it was last year. She talks about what her father taught her, and she came in to the experience of Star Trek, the original series, with a ton of confidence and security and self-esteem and everything. She had been built up to a point where she could be like, oh, this is the story that I'm telling, but hey, over here in these real life spaces, I don't see the same representation, and that's a problem, and I'm gonna need y'all to change that. And they were like, oh, okay, Nichelle, sure. Yeah, we'll get right on that. It's really powerful. It's really, really powerful. So I didn't get to talk to her about this part of it, but this is also really specific to me, right? Because, being that I'm from Alabama, it's like there was a lot of the other
Yeah.
There was a lot of racism that I was just like shot in the heart with, like every day, all day. And that stuff has to be dealt with. That stuff has to be healed. So in me realizing that all this focus inward was having the opposite effect and was going to lead to failure and not success. It's like, well, what's most important? The only star is the story. So how about we focus that out and you just do your part. You just take that baton and you run, and it'll all settle as it should, as it's supposed to.
So what did that feel like when you were able to just let all that go?
I finally, and I think I think that there's probably more way I could go. I could probably go further, right? I guess that's the case with everything, with all the ways that we mature, especially as Black people and especially as Black women. I think we can always go further, but it did allow me to create more fully, more authentically, more freely. There's this freedom that has to be present in creativity, or it's not as good as it could be.
What were the challenges of trying to showcase like what we were going through within today's time within the Star Trek universe? Because I know like there was some type of backlash to like, well, this isn't the Star Trek we know, like this isn't okay, like what was that like for you?
Oh man, people was mad. They was mad. They were like, a Black woman, and I was like, oh wow, it's like I was surprised, but then I also wasn't surprised. And I've said this before, because I was not surprised, because I'm like, oh yeah, this is what it's always been like for me. I'm from Alabama. But then I was surprised, because I said, but wait a second,
it's not a real universe.
And you said you love Trek? You said you love it. Okay. You love what it you say you love what it represents. Okay. It didn't make it. It's nonsensical. It's nonsensical and it's antithetical, And so, but what I did at the time is I said, okay, no, I'm gonna really do a WWJD moment right here. WWYD. What would Yeshua do? And be like, okay, everybody deserves the chance to grow, right? Everybody. And if you feel that way now, fine. But maybe if you watch and come on this journey with us, your mind will be changed. Your heart will be changed. That's what I hope for you. Because I wasn't going to hold unforgiveness against anybody. I don't have a right to do that. And I wasn't going to carry that offense. Absolutely not. So I said, you feel the way you feel, hopefully you grow. And I know for a fact that many people did.
It's also crazy comparing like 2017 to 1966. Like you can't do that. It's different times.
Exactly.
Also, like I know you've spoken about like during your time at University of Alabama, how that helped prepare you for your career.
Yeah.
Can you like speak more on that?
Oh yeah, it did. I mean, here I was, I had gotten this revelation from heaven that I was supposed to be an actor, and everybody in my family was like, and I was like, apparently, so here we go, and I was given a small scholarship in the theater department. I had to audition for that, and I got there and just got thrown into the deep end of this art form, this craft, right? I wouldn't take my education back for anything, because I had a fabulous education at the University of Alabama. I wanted to go to a conservatory, but at the time we couldn't afford that. I had to go in-state, but I found that the University of Alabama had one of the best, if not the best, theater programs in the Southeast. So it was like, okay, great. And then it ended up being fabulous. And I learned so much about this craft, and I learned about fighting for, I just learned about the fight that is often necessary for artists to do their art. Because there was some racism that I experienced at UA. That program at the time was subscriber based. So a lot of the shows that we were doing, did not have black characters in them unless you did musical theater, and I was straight theater. So I only did 3 plays the entire time I was there.
Oh, wow.
Because there was just no space for me. And when they did ultimately, when I did ultimately get cast, it was roles that they changed. It wasn't roles that were written to be for somebody black. So I got accustomed to having to sort of forge my own path. And when I came out of school, I already knew it. I was already familiar with it. So I just was able to keep going with that momentum. In addition to that, I got really deep into stage combat in college. Randomly. It's not something I even knew existed, but here I found myself fighting and learning weaponry and learning unarmed combat. And I ended up using that immediately, you know what I'm saying? On well, not immediately, some years later, but on Walking Dead, it's like it gave me a foundation. Fighting for the screen is very different than stage combat, but it gave me a foundation.
But speaking of like being in college and just like not having that representation offered to you, to someone writing a role for you in The Walking Dead, what did that feel like to go from that to that?
Man, that was something else. I'll always be grateful to Glenn Mazzara for that, because I was, as you know, I had auditioned for Michonne, and they just made the perfect choice with Denai. I love that woman, and she's just brilliant. And she's just as brilliant off camera too, by the way. It gets on my nerves sometimes. That's my sweet friend. But yeah, I got reached out to from Glenn Mazzara, who was the showrunner at the time, and he said, I really loved your work, and the reasons why we decided not to go with you, it wasn't personal, but I really loved your work, and I want to work with you again, so I'm going to create a role for you. And even my team at the time, they were like, oh, that's really nice of him to say that, but people say that all the time, and it doesn't happen. So, but that's so sweet that he said that to you, but let's just move on, And I was like, okay, yeah, that's probably true. He's probably just being nice and like whatever. But I think it was like 6 months later.
He did that.
He was like, remember when I had said, your name is Sasha, and you're Tyrese's sister, and let's go, come to Atlanta, And it was so very clear God's hand in it. It was like, oh, well, I didn't do this. How could I possibly, it was amazing.
And I also saw that you spoke about like how playing Michael Burnham, you learned your worth and your value as a Black woman. Yeah. Can you talk more about that? Like, how did that come to pass?
Man, well, a lot of it has to do with, what we were just talking about, with everything that I came into the experience with. Because I was very much fighting for my value when we first came in. And it's interesting because so was Burnham in some different ways, but still. And I don't even think I saw the correlation at the time. Not at the time, I do now, but I don't think I even did then. And I learned from bringing this character to life, and also from, what became my show family, and from speaking on what Trek means and what it's done for society, and how Nichelle paved the way, and how LeVar and Avery and Whoopi paved the way too, just in the Trek franchise. Obviously there's so many other people outside of the Trek franchise that paved the way. But I just started changing. My perspective just started changing almost organically. But I know that was because I was being healed, and so I suddenly realized, oh man, I am here, and my worth is not determined externally. My worth is God-given. Yes. It's untouchable. I didn't know that growing up. I didn't know that growing up. I didn't feel that ever growing up. You kidding me? I always felt less than growing up. So to finally feel, oh, I am enough. I am worth. it changed everything. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I can go further.
This is a hypothetical question, but if you feel like God didn't give you that vision to be like, no, change the course of your career, succeed to be an actress, if you would have kept going a route of wanting to be a psychologist, do you feel like you would have ever got to that point of feeling how you feel now?
Ooh, that's a good question, Unique. Man, probably not. But probably not, but possibly, right? Because that question is deep. Because that begs more questions. It begs another question of, if you slip up and maybe you're distracted, maybe you're not engaged, maybe you don't believe, maybe, whatever, and you miss it, you miss the path you're supposed to take, right? If what I believe about God is true, he's a course corrector. So it like GPS. So if you slip up and you go down this path and you wasn't supposed to, I suppose you still, if you believe, you know what I'm saying? If you accept his hand in your life, then he's gonna get you ultimately where you're supposed to go. So I guess, I'll change my answer and say maybe.
But it'll just look different.
Yes! Might look different.
So each season has its themes. What are the themes of season 5?
Whoa, man. Season 5 is big, let me tell you. Season 5 is the biggest season we've ever done. And we've done some really big seasons.
Yeah.
Season 4 was huge.
Season 2 was insane.
Yes!
There is a lot of special effects in that.
Thank you. And season 3 is really big too.
Yes.
It's when we jump to the future. Season 5, we didn't know it was the end when we were shooting, but there is such a finality to season 5. It feels like a conclusion, even though we didn't know. And so one of the themes is, let me see, how can I say this without spoiling it? Basically, we're asking the biggest existential questions that can be asked, period. And they also wanted to have a tonal shift. They wanted it to be more fun. They wanted it to be adventurous. They wanted us to be light and they wanted it to have levity. And so all of that is present. Absolutely. It's a ride. It's almost like a roller coaster in a way. But even some of the questions that we ask in the season, which, sort of become the themes of the season, were difficult for me at times. To be honest, I've said this a few times here and there, and people will possibly understand, maybe not, once they see the season. But there were some moments that were really challenging for me, Sonequa, with my relationship with God and with my faith. But I think that ultimately, the theme of hope is really at the center of it, which is really beautiful to end with, because that's the theme of Trek at large. At the root of all of it is hope.
Because, I'm not going to say what they're after, but, when they explain in episode 1 what this treasure is, it's, insane.
Right.
And I want to go season 4, because season 4 is heavy. There's so many themes, themes of grief and overcoming grief and, identity and, what does forgiveness look like within that space. So, can you just speak on, how it was filming that season and, how you guys had to, dig deep down to, portray that?
Man, yeah, you done brought up something with this question. I appreciate this question. Man, because season 4 was rough, man. Season 4 was really rough for everybody. I'll start with the writers. They really wanted to speak to the pandemic. They wanted to speak to the world. So they were intentional about that. They said, okay, how can we help? We have this platform. We have this show that millions of people watch around the world. Can we say something that can help the world right now? Let's try. So that's what the whole going outside of the galaxy and connecting with the 10C and us worlds being destroyed out of nowhere. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know how. There's the unpredictability of it. They were trying their best to mirror what the world was feeling, that sense of uncertainty and anxiety, and that all of us were feeling. And it was hard on us. We were one of the first shows back to work, right? And there were strict protocols, of course, and that was difficult because we were accustomed to being really tight. And our tightness really, I think you can feel it. People say that they can feel it. It bled into the story, but us not being able to be together, us not being able to touch and connect in that way was difficult. And it was hard for people because there were all kinds of things happening in people's real lives. So there was the anxiety. There were people losing people. There were the people who became positive. That was at a time where it was like, because so many people were just dying, and so it was, tension was high. And then my parents died in the middle of this, and a day apart, and I went right back to work. I needed to go right back to work. And it's interesting because my sister, who's 3 years older than me, had the opposite experience after they left us. She went like insular and took the time to reflect and be with herself and her grief. I needed to leave it for a second to finish the show. And my show family, they really did just come around me. But it was really difficult, to say the least. I can't even really express
I understand that.
how difficult it really was. But yeah, I'm grateful for them for supporting me the way that they did. And the grief journey,
crying, girl.
I know. Yeah. The grief journey continues for sure. And you have to allow it. You gotta allow the grief journey to continue. So yeah, man, season 4 was challenging.
I understand. Woo. Yeah, give us a second.
Yeah, but I don't want to be just like hum dum dum, like, of course there were bright spots too, and being able to speak to the world in that way, was such a blessing. And for me, being able to get right back to work was a blessing. And I would have my moments where I would break down, like, on set, and have to go to my trailer and fall on my face. And then Shauna Llewellyn was was the head of our makeup department that season, and she would sit with me, and then she would redo all my makeup, and and we keep going.
Well, looking back at it now, like, I know growth after something like that is hard, but are you proud of the growth that you've made since then?
Oh yeah, I am. It's like, can you say this? Can you say you're proud of God? Proud of you. It's like, I don't know if that's possible, but I can just see the work that he's done in me. I can see it, and I can see the people that he's used. It's like, man, if my husband and my kids, like, what? They have been MVPs in my life in general, but then specifically speaking about the grief journey, specifically in that journey, and my sister, like, we have 3 older sisters, and we were all there together when our dad passed of liver cancer, and we were there with him, all around him. But then Mama passed suddenly of a heart attack the next day. And so then me and my sister, because our 3 older sisters are half sisters. So then me and my sister had the isolated experience of both parents. And so her and I, even though our experiences, our grief journeys have been very different, we depend on each other and are MVPs for each other, you know.
On a lighter note.
Yep.
We got to shout out the play that got you and your husband together.
Oh!
On a whole lighter note. So let's talk about that real quick.
I love a whole lighter note. On a whole lighter note, we got to get out of here. Because we'll stay here.
We would. We definitely will.
And I can feel, I want to be like, I almost want to, we'll talk about it. Because I'm like, I see your experience in your eyes and I want to hear from you. Because I can see that you get it. And I don't know why. And like, I want to know why.
I can share. Same thing happened with my father and my stepfather. So I understand.
Man.
In the same month of April, so I know. So we're connected.
Yeah. On a whole lighter note.
On a whole lighter note. Sorry, we're crying. ET Talks, guys.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Okay. Fetch Clay Make Man was the name of the play. And we auditioned out of New York because we were both living in New York at the time, pursuing. He's a big theater actor, and he was just doing he's a big Shakespeare actor, at least he was. He was doing a ton of he was just going from like Shakespeare company to Shakespeare company to Shakespeare to regional theater to regional theater to regional theater. You know, it was really, he was just like on the road, you know, acting. And yeah. The play, we did it at the McCarter Theater in Princeton, which is a pre-Broadway showcase space. And we didn't actually interact in the play. I think I walked by him like twice. But yeah, that's how we met. And that was December 2009. And then we were married December 2010, a year later.
Oh, wow, he knew.
He did know. And then I knew, and then... And he always knew, so, you know, there we are.
So what's next for you? What do you foresee next for you if you don't already know what's next?
Man, I just did a film. I shot it in June of last year. It's called My Dead Friend Zoe, and we premiered at South by Southwest along with Star Trek Discovery. Which I didn't even know that CBS was having TV premieres at South by Southwest. That was really cool. So we won the Narrative Spotlight Award, the movie did. And it's really indicative of where I want to go from here on, because the writer-director, his name is Kyle Houseman Stokes. He's an Army vet, Bronze Star. And he lost 2 of his battle buddies. And he wanted to do something that would save lives. So it's very much a veteran story, but the more specific, the more universal. So it's one that anybody going through a grief journey can relate to. It is about that. It's about grief. It's about survivor's remorse. It's about guilt and about mental health. And he really wanted it to help. He wanted it to save. And I thought, what better thing to be a part of, you know, I was honored to stand with him and do it, because he chose a Black woman to tell his story, which is really interesting, and then a Cuban woman to tell part of his story. So it's profound, and it's a dark comedy. After I said all that, it's also a dark comedy. And we've got a fantastic cast, and you know, we hope that it lands at just the right place, and it's had a great reaction so far. And so that's the kind of thing that I want to do. I want to tell stories that matter. I want to tell stories, which I know that's hard to say, right? Because I guess different people think different things matter. But I just want to tell stories that almost rise up to the level of activism. I want to continue to do that. And then, you know, if I could be a homemaker here and there as well, that could also be nice.
How has that been, like, balancing being a mother, being a wife, and having this thriving career within the space that, like, takes you away from your family from time to time?
I know, that's the thing. That's the hardest part about it. You know, I remember somebody asking me recently what the cost of success was to me. They were like, "What do you think the cost of success is?" Or no. They said, "What has surprised you the most about success?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, the cost, the cost of it. You know, I mean, my idea of success is very different today than it used to be. I would define it completely differently now.
We don't gotta give us your definition now.
What'd you say?
You definitely have to give us your definition now.
Oh, well, I mean, it's more church, you know what I'm saying? But no, I mean, I think to me now, it's not about selfish ambition anymore. For me, it's literally just about being where I'm supposed to be and telling the stories I'm supposed to tell. So for me, success for me is, am I following the will of God for my life? Period. That is the only success that is available to me, that I care about and that I want, right? So the cost of it that I've experienced so far is very much that it's being away, because people talk about being away from their kids. You hear mothers talking about being away from their kids, career mothers. But I feel like people don't ever quite get at how painful it really is. It is excruciating to leave my children. It's excruciating. It's easier. It's the only reason why it's easier to leave my husband is because he's not dependent like my children are. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, of course, that's super difficult to leave him too. But he's an actor as well. We get it. We speak the same language. He can pop and see me. I can pop and see him. It's much easier for he and I. But for the kids, it's excruciating. So I'm always doing whatever I gotta do. If I gotta fly through the night, it's like, who cares if I sleep? I don't care. Like I have to pour into my children. I have to see them. I know I don't want to do that job. Actually, I don't care what it pays. Like I'm gonna be home. No, I don't want to go do that event. Because I need to be home for dinner. Like, no, I don't care about whatever this thing is that you want me to do. It's not as important as my kids, as time with my kids, right? And so I guess the question, or the answer to your question about how do you balance it, is, for me, is being stricter and stricter and stricter about my time. So I guess sharpening my no is one of the ways.
Were you always afraid to say no, though?
I think that there were probably times early in my career where I was afraid to say no. Yeah. I mean, my son had just turned 2 when we started shooting Discovery. I was pregnant with him all of season 5 of Walking Dead. I was nursing him all of season 6. And then when we started Discovery, when we started shooting January 3rd of 2017, he had just turned 2. And so, yeah, I think for sure, I think all of us kind of go through that in this career, in this industry, don't we? Where we go through a period where we feel like we have to. We feel like we have to for whatever reason. But I praise God that I'm finally at a point now where I'm like, no. I do not have to.
So before we go, what's something you would tell your younger self?
Well, okay. What age am I that I'm talking to?
You're talking to, that pinnacle age, between the ages of, let's say 14. No, not even. Let's say 18 to 24.
Ooh, 18 to 24.
When you're still, you think you know who you are, you think you
but
know what you want, but you don't know nothing.
You're still a child. You're but a child.
And when things don't work out for you in that way, you're just like, my world's over.
That's exactly right. That is how it feels. Man, there's so many things I could say. But I would tell myself to trust God more. Commune with God more, and give myself more grace. I would say figure out grace so you can give it to yourself. That's what I would say.
That's so beautiful. And guys, Star Trek Discovery is now available on Paramount Plus.
As of today.
Any last words?
I love you.
I love
Those are
you
my
too.
last words.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you too, Unique. Thank you.
You're welcome.